Vishnu Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashto Tarasata Shishi Mad His Divine Grace of High Charana Ravinda Bhakti Shamashra Prabhupada Ki ISKCON BBD Founder Charya Save the whole world Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Vishnu Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashto Tarasata Shishi Mad His Divine Grace of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Namacharya Shahardas Thakur Ki Prem Sakaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srisati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gokopana Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Goparana Ki Braj Bhumi Shivindama Dama Ki Navadip Mayapur Dama Ki Purushtam Chetra Jaganapuri Dama Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Ki Sri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadmai Ki Patita Pavana Sri Gaurahari Ki Maha Mahotsava Sri Gopar Punim Ki Jai Nitai Goparemanandi Oh glorious Samadhoris Oh glorious Samadhoris Oh glorious Samadhoris Oh glorious Lord Sri Sri Guru and Sri Guranga Oh glorious Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnu Krishna Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Sa Na Prasidatang Bhamo Sana Prasidatam Bhamo Sana Prasidatam Bhamo Bhagavan Uru Anugraha Bhagavan Urvanugraha Bhagavan Urvanugraha Sana Prasidatang Bhamo Bhagavan Urvanugraha Vyadasyapi Anukampyanam Vyadasyapyanukampyanam Vyadasyapyanukampyanam Srinam Deva Sati Pati Srinam Deva Sati Pati Srinam Deva Sati Pati Vyadasyapyanukampyanam Srinam Deva Satipati Sana Prasidatang Bhamo Bhagavanu Urvanugraha Vyadasyapyanukampyanam Srinam Deva Satipati Sana Prasidatang Bhamo Bhagavan Urvanugraha Vyadasyapyanukampyanam Srinam Deva Satipati
Sana
Kampanam Srinam Deva Satipati Sana Prasidatam Bhavo Bhagavan Urvanugraha Yagasyapianukamtyana Srinam Deva Satipati Sana Prasidatam Bhavo Bhagavan Urvanugraha Yagasyapianukamtyana Srinam Deva Satipati Vaishnavis? Sana Prasidatam Bhavo Bhagavan Urvanugraha Srinam Deva Satipati Sana Prasidatam Bhavo Bhagavan Urvanugraha Yagasyapianukamtyana Srinam Deva Satipati Sa He Na with us Prasidatam be pleased Bhama brother-in-law Bhagavan the personality of all opulences Guru very great Anugraha merciful Vyadasya of the hunter Api also Anukampyanam of the objects of mercy Strinam of the women Deva worshipable Lord Satipati the husband of Sati the chaste. So we see here in this verse, and you know, there's many words of significance, and you know, just a few things that sort of come to me at least is in the first line it says Bhamo, the brother-in-law. So you know, because of their relationship, you know, he's like the younger brother of Kardama. Then she's saying he should be merciful to me. You know, because of our relationship. And we see sometimes in families there's disputes and stuff, but because of the relationship, it's never taken seriously. Although sometimes in families there are disputes and it's taken very seriously and wind up killing each other. So, you know, there's or you know, they'll never speak to each other again. I know in Navadvip there's this shop I regularly go to buy deity paraphernalia, you know, all the brassware and stuff. And the last time I went there, the shop was much smaller, so I asked him what happened. He said there was an argument between my brother and I, so now we're, you know, separate like that. You know, so we see sometimes things like that happen. But she's saying, you know, because he's a great soul and that, you know, and he's my brother-in-law, he's not going to take it seriously. And then we see also in the next line, it says Bhagavan. And for many, this creates confusion, because they see that Lord Shiva is being addressed here as Bhagavan. And as we understand, the Parashara Muni, he defines Bhagavan as being that person who possesses all opulences. And he defines the, you know, the opulence Aishvara, Samagra, Shava, Virya, Yasasriya, Gnana Bhagavata, Shaya, Sanam Bhagavata, Dingana. That he defines that the six opulences, Aishvarya, he's like you know, was Aishvarya Samagrasha Viryasha. So Virya means strong, very, very strong, powerful. Yashasha means fame, Shriya, beauty, Jnana, the knowledge, Vairagya, renunciation, and what was the last one? Wealth, I think it's mentioned. That he's the possessor of all these things. And we see here that Lord Shiva is being addressed like that. And we also see sometimes personalities like Brahma is also addressed as Bhagavan, and also Narad Muni is also being addressed as Bhagavan. And for those who are maybe not so educated in the philosophy or the Siddhanta of Krishna consciousness, for them these terms can become bewildering. They say, well, why are you worshipping Krishna? Because here it says that Shiva is Bhagavan. But there's different ways to understand this. One way of understanding this is because he is also a very opulent, powerful personality. He's very, very powerful. And we see that in the when the universes are destroyed, that this is begun by Lord Shiva. But this is the service he does for Krishna. He destroys the universe. And another way of understanding it also is because of his connection with Bhagavan, because he's a great devotee of Bhagavan. Therefore he's also being glorified as Bhagavan. The same as Brahma and the same as Narad Muni. They're also being glorified in this way. And that's primarily because of their connection. It doesn't mean that because when Parashuram Muni, when he's describing Krishna, he says that he possesses all these opulences in full. So this cannot be said of these other personalities. That yes, they possess opulences, there's no doubt. But we see that Lord Krishna, he possesses all these opulences in full. I mean, who is stronger than Krishna? By one of his Shaktavesh incarnations. Shaktavesh meaning Avesh means like a covering. So Shakti is an energy. So by a jiva that's been empowered by him to perform a particular task, he holds all the universes on his hood. And this is just an energy of Krishna that's doing this. What person can do that? What person can even hold one universe, let alone a planet, on their head, without being crushed? And you see that there's in Greek mythology there's this personality called Atlas, and he holds the world. And you see there's you can sometimes see statues or drawings or whatever of Atlas, and he's holding the world. He's you can see his muscles are all bulging. He's really straining to do it. But then we see that, for Ananta Shesh, and keep in mind that this is just a jiva who's been empowered with the Shakti of Krishna. He holds all the universes on the hood, and he doesn't even know they're there. That's how powerful he is. And we see there's so many other examples of Krishna demonstrating his power. When he's a little child, he held Govardhan Hill on the little pinky of his. I mean, what can you hold on the little pinky of your left hand for 7 days, or maybe even 7 minutes? But he held this massive hill upon his little pinky of his left hand for 7 days, and Prabhupada describes it in a really amazing way. He said, just like a child picks up a frog's umbrella. You know what a frog's umbrella is? Yeah, a mushroom or a toadstool. Because sometimes you'll see, like when it's raining, the frog will hide under a mushroom or a toadstool. So it's just like a child would pick that up. It's nothing. They weigh nothing. And he held it aloft for 7 days. So we can see how powerful Krishna is. So no one can compare to that. And how much wealth Krishna has, who's more beautiful than Krishna? I mean, who's more beautiful than Gopinath? Do you know anyone? And even you see in this world, you see like there's so many, women or men being glorified as being very beautiful or very handsome, but how long does that last? You might have a very attractive form, but what will it last? Like a few years. Even sometimes you see some of these movie stars. I remember when I was a child, there was a movie star called, two of them I can think of, Sophia Loren and Brigitte Bardot, and they had this they call it eternal beauty. It's like they were saying how they're just beautiful for years and years and years, but it's still, where are they now? What do they look like now? They age, the body ages, and the beauty's gone. But Krishna's not like that. He's eternally beautiful. He's eternally attractive because he never ages past 14, 15 years old. And what person in this world can do that? Yeah? Just stay forever attractive and handsome and young. It just doesn't work like that. So you see, like if you look at all these opulences, and you can see how Krishna, he is the most opulent person. He possesses all opulences in full. As he says, Vedaham samititani vatamani charjuna bhavishani chabhutani mang tu veda nakashana. He says, I know everything that's happened in the past. Who can say that? Even if you've got one of these, like there's this supercomputer, I think it's called the Cray supercomputer. It's supposed to be like, I mean, they use these terms that I've got no idea what they mean. They talk about teraflops of what is a teraflop? It flops this way and it flops that way. I've got no idea what it means. Then it gives you like, some concept of the computing power of this computer. And it can do so much. But does it know everything? Even this most powerful computer, But even you look at these most powerful computers, are they as powerful as the human brain? Probably not. The human brain can do so many amazing things and recall so many things. But even the most, intelligent or like powerful brain in the world cannot claim to know everything. He says, I know everything that's happened in the past. I know everything that's happening right now. I know all things that are going to happen in the future. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. Who can say that? But Krishna does. And he said, Mang tu veda nakashana, but me no one knows. It's a very, very extraordinary personality. And so when we see these personalities being addressed as Bhagavan, we should not mistake to think that they're Krishna. But many people make that mistake. We should not make that mistake. Krishna is unique. And we need to understand. And this is why, these verses, like this verse from Parashuram Muni, it's really nice to, when we hear these verses, to contemplate how Krishna is the possessor of all opulence. Not just, just hear the story like that. There's a really interesting story, and you probably know this story very well, called the Brahmana and the Cobbler. And so, essentially the story was Narad Muni, he was heading to the spiritual world to see Narayan. And he thought he would just, on the way, stop and see these devotees. One was a Brahmana and one was a Cobbler. And when he stopped and saw the Brahmana was very dedicated to performing his, religious activities. He would, rise early, study the scriptures, memorize verses, do all the rituals, the yajnas, etc., like that, every day. Very, very, dedicated to his practice. And when he met with the Brahmana, he was very happy to see Narad Muni because, he understands who Narad Muni is. He said, "Oh, my dear Narada, where are you going?" He said, "Oh, I'm going to Vaikuntha to see Lord Narayan." And the Brahmana said, "Oh, that's very nice. When you get to Vaikuntha and you see Lord Narayan, can you ask him when I'm going to be liberated?" "Oh, of course, I'll do that." And then so Narad Muni goes on his way and he meets with the Cobbler. And the Cobbler, he's so happy to see Narad Muni. And he doesn't have very much. He's, Cobbler means a person who makes shoes, and he's very, very, they're called muchi in Sanskrit. They're referred to as muchi, and as we know, muchi means unclean. But nonetheless, Narad Muni is a very, very compassionate person, and we see here that that deity is also considering that Lord Shiva is also a very compassionate person. We'll talk about that more in a little while. But he visits the Cobbler, even though he's an unclean person. The Cobbler's so happy to see him, but he doesn't have anything to offer him. He doesn't even have a seat to offer him. So at least he offers him some water. And he's glorifying Narad Muni and offering obeisance to him and appreciating him being there, and appreciating his good fortune, really, that Narad Muni's come to visit him. And then he starts to ask Narad Muni where he's going, and Narad Muni explains how he's going to Vaikuntha to see Lord Narayan. He goes, "Oh, my Lord Narayan, he's so wonderful." And then there's a really interesting ISKCON Leela with microphone stands. They tend to slowly just go down. You know. I can't talk down this part of the body. Yeah, so Narad Muni, he tells me he's going to Vaikuntha, and he's really happy to hear that. And then he goes on his way to Vaikuntha. And then when he gets to Vaikuntha, he explains to Lord Narayan that he saw these two personalities, and they wanted to know about their liberation. And then so Narayan said, you can tell the Brahmana that he'll be liberated after many, many thousands of births. But the cobbler, he'll be liberated at the end of this life. I've actually heard two different stories. One says that the cobbler will be liberated at the end of this life, and the other one says he'll be liberated when all the leaves fall off a banyan tree. So there's different stories there. And so Narad Muni, he's a bit perplexed because he's seeing that the Brahman, he's doing all these activities, and he's very religious, he's very dedicated, he's studying the Shastras, he's doing so many things, and he said, but my Lord, why so many lives for him, but the cobbler after this life, and the cobbler's, he's engaged in dirty activities and things like that. And he said, okay, you tell them, because they're going to ask you, what was I doing? And you tell them that Narayan, he was threading an elephant. Prabhupada tells this story in a really wonderful way, that he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle backwards and forwards, like this. And Narad really doesn't understand. He says, don't worry, you tell him that, you'll understand. Yeah. And so he goes back there and he meets the Brahmana first. And, just to sort of spare all the detail of it, or to cut it a little bit short, the Brahmana asks him, he tells him he saw Narayan, the Brahmana asks him, you saw Narayan? He's a little bit doubtful, and he said, what was he doing? Oh, no, actually, no, sorry, I skipped the part there. First off, hang on, sorry, I've got to get it right, because it kind of it demonstrates it properly when you get it right. That's right, he asked him first when he's going to be liberated. And he said, Lord Narayan, he said, you'll be liberated after thousands of births. What? He's so shocked. He's, I've dedicated my whole life to serving Lord Narayan. I've dedicated my whole life to these religious practices. And what's the use of them? It's of no value whatsoever because, it's going to take me thousands of births to get liberated. I don't believe you went there. What was he doing when you went there? And he said, that's interesting, you should ask that. He was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle backwards and forwards. Impossible! No one can do that. And so Narad Muni was, this is interesting. Okay. Then he went and saw the cobbler. And same sort of thing, that the cobbler, he wasn't actually very interested when he was going back to Godhead. He was just happy in his service. But anyhow, he asked Narad Muni, said, you'll go back home to Godhead at the end of this life. And that's very nice. And then he said, what was Lord Narayan doing? And then Narad Muni, he described to the cobbler, he said, actually, it's interesting you should ask that because he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle backwards and forwards. Oh, that's amazing. Lord Narayan, he's so wonderful, he can do anything. And then Narad Muni said, you actually believe he was doing that? Of course I believe that. He said, look, I'm sitting under this banyan tree. And on the banyan tree there's so many fruits. And banyan trees are gigantic. The Prabhupada describes, I've never seen it. I mean, I have seen some big fig trees. Like if you go up to Queensland, they have these trees called Moreton Bay figs. I remember at the cemetery in Rockhampton, it's not there anymore, I think they pulled it down, or they cut it down. But there was this massive fig tree that went for, I can't remember how big it was, but I just remember being marveled at how big this tree was, because they the way because a banyan is a type of a fig, the way they grow is they shoot out a branch, and the branch will drop down a root. And then that'll grow out again and drop down another root and drop down another, and they just keep expanding like that. And sometimes there's one there that Prabhupada said was about 2 kilometers across. In Calcutta. I've never seen it, but Prabhupada talks about it. So we see that they're very, very vast, very huge. And then the cobbler, he said, and just on the banyan tree, there's so many fruits. And in this fruit, there's so many seeds. And if you see the seed in a fig tree, they're tiny. They're very, very, like maybe a mil and a half across. And he said, if Lord Narayan, he can put a banyan tree in there, for him to thread an elephant through the eye of a needle is not very difficult. So we see, he understood. He didn't just accept that Krishna was great, or Narayan was great. He understood how he was great. And this is, the point of studying the Shastra, is so that we understand the nature of Krishna. The Prabhupada, he talks about this in the end of the 10th chapter of the Gita. There's that Yadya Vibhudimat Sattvam verse, where he talks about how, all these opulence and glorious and wonderful creations, they spring from but a spark of Krishna's splendor. So we need to understand that everything, you look at this this world, it's so amazing. There's so many powerful things in this world. Just like, we've just been through this, I was here, I think 2 weeks ago, and then I went home, and, I just can't believe what's, the flat, it's like a war zone up there. It's just incredible what's happened. And this was just, a little drop of water Krishna was dropping on the planet. I mean, the devastation, like I was speaking to the someone from the insurance company representative yesterday, because we lost our car during the flood, and it was like completely underwater. And so I was speaking to the lady from the insurance company. 6,000 cars lost in the flood. 3,000 caravans, like in Chindra. I don't know if anyone knows where Chindra is. It's on the way to Tweed Heads. The Tweed River it goes around a slow bend, but if you look at it, it goes points straight at Chindra. Chindra is right on the bend, so the river just went straight through Chindra and wiped out the caravan park and everything. 39,000 homes damaged. In Lismore alone, 3,000 houses have been condemned. It just gives you an idea of, and this is just a spark of Krishna's splendor, just dropping a bit of water on a planet. Just imagine what it's like when the pralaya comes. It just rains and rains and rains and rains, and the water just rises up and up and up and up and up and covers the whole universe, except the Satya Lokas, all the planets in the mode of goodness. That's all that survive. How much water there is. And this is Krishna's splendor. So it's really important, when we hear these descriptions, we reflect on how powerful Krishna is, how great Krishna is, and how insignificant, even someone like Lord Shiva, how insignificant he is in comparison to Krishna. He's nothing. We are nothing in comparison to Krishna. We have our potencies, we have our opulences, but in comparison to Krishna, and Prabhupada, he sometimes he would reflect on this, and he would describe to his disciples, you become so puffed up, thinking you have some ability. We might have some knowledge, we may understand some topic very well, but there's always someone who can do it better. There's always someone, you may have a lot of money, you may have a nice car. Like yesterday I got picked up from the airport in a nice car. But there's always someone who's got a nicer car, a more expensive car. It's like, there's people with no end of money in this world. And even them, like there's people like you get your what's that guy's name? Amazon, what's the guy's name?
Jeff Bezos.
Huh? Jeff Bezos, right? That guy's got piles of money, right? He can put rockets up, and he can. It used to be that governments would do that; they'd put rockets up in space. Now we have these millionaires doing it. There's Bezos, and there's the guy who makes the cars, Elon Musk. Yeah, there's these. They've got piles of money, but if you compare them to some of the wealth from days gone by, or days of yore, as they say, there's like There's one guy who built that temple, the Radha Govinda temple in Vrindavan. You've seen that temple, how big it is, and it's missing 3 stories. That was the wealth of one person, and he didn't go bankrupt. Who would be able to build that in this day and age? All this sandstone. You couldn't even find the sandstone to build it. Or you go to what's that? I'm a bit blank on all these names today. You know when you go to Kusum Sarovara, that's fantastic. I mean, it's just so beautiful. And that was just the wealth of one person. Yeah? And it wasn't all their wealth. Or the Taj Mahal. Yeah? I mean, who could build, even a government probably couldn't afford to build the Taj Mahal now. Yeah? Or get the marble for it. So, and I was listening to a class the other day, Prabhupada was talking about how as Kali Yuga progresses, the value of money is decreasing. And I'll give you an example which we're all painfully aware of right now. When I was a child, I used to mow the lawn. That was my weekly task. Right? And so I would go up to the local petrol station with a gallon can. Most of you probably don't even know what a gallon is these days. About 4.5 litres, or 4.54 litres, right? I still think gallons and feet and inches. I can't think centimetres and stuff like that. Anyhow, so I used to go up to the petrol station with a gallon can and get a gallon of petrol. Right? And I'd offer to pay the guy money. He'd say, "Oh, don't worry about it." Yeah? That's like $10 now. Yeah, yeah. And when I remember when it converted from gallons to litres, I never could figure out why. But when it converted from gallons to litres, it was 11 cents a litre. What is it now? $2 something. In parts of New South Wales, it's actually $3 a litre. Huh? And they're predicting that pretty soon it's going to be $4 a litre. Can you believe it? So the value of money is just decreasing. Yeah? Even though you may have billions of dollars, it'll get to it's like when I got dropped at the airport, the devotee said, I gave him $20 a ride. He said, "It'll probably be $40 when you come back." My wife saw a bumper sticker the other day. It's like the price of the car depends on how much petrol's in the tank. Yeah? It's like that, Yeah. Yeah. So it's just, and also it mentions here Uru Vanugraha. How he's very great. He's very merciful. So this is the nature of. Sometimes he's called Asutosh. Asutosh means very, very easily pleased, but sometimes very easily angered. So this is the nature of Lord Shiva. I'll just read the translation. "Let him be pleased with us, since he is my brother-in-law, the husband of my sister Sati. He is also the worshipful Lord of all women. He is the personality of all opulences and can show mercy towards women, who are excused even by the uncivilized hunters." So we see here Sati's, because if we go back a few verses, there was about, half a dozen verses there where Kashyapa was Kashyapa, is it, or Kadama? Kashyapa, yeah, is describing the nature of Lord Shiva and how he's very, very powerful and how he associates with ghosts and things like that. And then he explains to Sati how he's fearful of engaging in procreation at that particular time because it may anger Lord Shiva. Because Kashyapa is a very religious person. Diti is also a very religious person, and we'll see later on. She's glorified by Kashyapa, and he's saying because of your devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you'll have Prahlad as your grandson. So it's obviously that they're great devotees, but the momentary lapse, she becomes overwhelmed by lusty desires, and she wants to have sex with Kashyapa. And ultimately we can understand it's not like a lapse in consciousness or anything like that. It's actually the illusory energy of the Lord, but not I would guess not particularly Mahamaya, but Yogamaya acting here. Because why? Because it's facilitating Krishna's pastimes. If we can see where it's an act that's facilitating the pastimes of the Lord, we can understand that this is actually the arrangement of Krishna through his Yogamaya energy. When it's something that makes us forget Krishna, then this is Mahamaya. But if it facilitates the pastimes of Krishna, because Yogamaya is that energy which arranges the Lord's pastimes. And so we can see here how this is facilitating the Lord's pastimes, because if you sort of backtrack with the story a little bit, we can understand that these two personalities who appear, at least in this pastime, because it's not always Jai and Vijay. You know, sometimes this is made by point is made by Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that because of an offence committed by the doorkeepers, ultimately to Lakshmi, but also to the four Kumaras, they were cursed to take birth here on this world as demons. And so one of these appearances is as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And so we can see that's a pastime of Krishna. So it's by the arrangement of the Lord, deity has forgotten momentarily her practice of Krishna consciousness, and Kashyapa has agreed momentarily to step aside from his duties to satisfy his wife. And therefore we have this wonderful pastime is going to take place. Lord Shiva, is the purport, is the husband of Sati, one of the sisters of Diti. Diti invoked the pleasure of her sister Sati, so that Sati would request her husband to excuse her. Besides that, Lord Shiva is the worshipful Lord of all women. He is naturally kind. He is naturally very kind towards women, on whom even the uncivilized hunters also show their mercy. Since Lord Shiva is himself associated with women, he knows very well their defective nature, and he might not take very seriously Diti's unavoidable offence, which occurred due to her faulty nature. Every virgin girl is supposed to be a devotee of Lord Shiva. Diti remembered her childhood worship of Lord Shiva and begged his mercy. So we see here also that Srila Prabhupada is giving a little bit of an understanding about Shiva's connection or relationship with women. And what time's the darshan? Is it 8:30? Okay. But also we see how he's talking about the compassionate or the merciful nature of Lord Shiva, and how he's very merciful upon the conditioned living entities, in this case particularly with women. But just a reflection on that is also the compassionate nature of Lord Shiva, in that we see in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, particularly the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how Advaita Acharya, out of compassion upon the conditioned souls in this age, and he was praying, to the Lord that, this is a very, very fallen age, and it's actually so fallen that only you, my Lord, can save these conditioned souls. So who is Advaita Acharya? He's Sadashiva. He's again manifesting this merciful, compassionate nature to liberate the conditioned souls from the horrible situation of this age. And you don't have to be very, very astute or very observant to notice the horrible situation in this age, and how people are suffering so much. I mean, you just look at what's been happening the last few years. It seems to me it's becoming more and more apparent. But as soon as you try to speak to people, and just non-devotees about this, let's not talk about that. Why? Why don't they want to talk about it? Because they'll interfere with their enjoyment. But as devotees, we can see this is Mahaprabhu is saying it's not a fit place for a gentleman or a gentle lady. It's not the right place to be, because it's not our natural place. Our natural place is to be in the spiritual world, where there is no birth, death, old age, and disease. But we see here in this material world, okay, every day we see, and it points this out in the scriptures also. Every day there's this ahani hani bhutani, this verse that Yudhisthira said to Yamaraj when he was disguised as a yaksha, is every day so many people, because he asked him, what's the most amazing thing in this world? And you might think, well, it's technology, or the latest Apple computer or whatever, most amazing thing in the world. Actually, what his answer is, the most amazing thing in this world is every day so many people are entering into the abode of death. But still, I think that I'm not going to enter into the abode of death. This is amazing. And we see in this world, look at the last few years, right? I remember, I think I described this last time, when I just before the start of the pandemic, or when it really sort of kicked in, I was flying from Mayapur to Sydney, and these bushfires were happening, and you could actually see the bushfires from. Actually, you could see the bushfires from space. They took photos of it from the satellites, and you could see the orange. But I could see flying into Sydney at 30,000 feet. You could see the flames. It was just incredible. And so we've had these bushfires, right, around Sydney. And they were pretty powerful bushfires. And then we had the pandemic for 2 years, which just seems to be. It's not kind of gone yet because there's 20,000 cases yesterday. So it's like in New South Wales alone. So we can see it's not gone yet, but it's a lot of suffering. Globally, I think about 6 million people have died, and how many million people have been infected, I don't know. And whatever. And so a lot of suffering going on. And now we've had the floods. Who knows what's next? Maybe there's going to be a nuclear war. If anyone sort of upsets Vladimir, we're going to be in big trouble, And they're all scared of it. They're all scared of it because something could happen, But still, there's all these calamities happening in this world. Still, they hope that the Prabhupada would say sometimes, hope against hope that they're going to enjoy. Just one calamity after the next in this material world. They don't see it. They refuse to look at it. And so, but we as devotees, we can see the difficult situation in this material world. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has appeared in this world to deliver those fallen, conditioned souls, and he makes it so easy. If you look at when Krishna appeared, he said, "Okay, abandon all varieties of religion, surrender to me, then I'll deliver you." A little bit not so easy to do that. To surrender completely to Krishna, not so easy to do that. And I mean, we're all experiencing that, right? We read about it, we hear about it. Not so easy to surrender to Krishna. But then we see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he presented such a simple process. You chant Hare Krishna, you dance in kirtan, and you take Krishna Prasad. Such a simple process, and we struggle with it. Isn't it? We struggle with it. And Prabhupada sometimes he would say, he said, this process of Krishna consciousness is so simple. You dance, you chant, you take Krishna Prasad, and still we cannot do. But Lord Chaitanya, he's come to make it so easy because, and this is compassion. This is compassion upon the living entities of this age. Out of his compassionate nature, he's descended in order to give love of Godhead freely. That there's a nice verse we chant. I can't remember whether it's when waking the deities or putting to bed, but it describes how Lord Nityananda, how he distributes the holy name only for the price of one's faith. It's the most valuable jewel he's giving, and all he's asking is just have faith that if you chant this holy name, you'll be delivered. It's such a simple process. And by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if we apply ourselves to this process, we will go back to Godhead. There's no doubt. And Mahaprabhu says, Nasti eva, Nasti eva, Nasti eva. There's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. If we simply take shelter of this process of Krishna consciousness, we will be delivered back to the lotus feet of Krishna, without a doubt. Okay, so we've got a few minutes. I'll leave some time for questions or comments, or corrections. Anything at all? Yes, last one, Jai Mataji.
Yeah, I just want to ask this duty's unavoidable offence. You sort of touched on it, but in the long term, you see elevated personalities like people becoming overwhelmed by loss or marriage. Poetry becomes overwhelmed by hunger and thirst and sage. Other examples here. Is it, it's different to us if we're overwhelmed? It's always...
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely different. Because like when it happens to us, just like, okay, you gave a wonderful example there of Parikit. You know, when we become overwhelmed by hunger and that thirst or whatever, and we get angry with someone, it doesn't cause the Bhagavatam to manifest. Isn't it? Have you had that happen lately, where you've become overwhelmed by thirst and stuff, and you chastise someone, and the Bhagavatam manifests? And so you can see, like, palina parachiyate, you judge the thing by the result. So you can understand, the result of, here for instance, deities being overwhelmed by lust. Okay, it may look like ordinary mundane lust to us, and and how it manifests. I mean, how can we say, But look at the result of what happened. Is Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were born from her womb. Hiranyaksha was killed by Varahadev. So this precipitated the pastimes of Varahadev appearing. And then with Hiranyakashipu, who was born to Hiranyakashipu was Prahlad Maharaj, who is compared, we'll see later in this chapter, he's compared to being, he's put on an equal footing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a great Vaishnava. Prahlad Maharaj's fame will live forever. He's such a glorious devotee, he will be glorified forever in the pages of the Bhagavatam. And, we also see that the para-avasta form of Krishna, Nrsimhadev, manifested as a result of the activities of Hiranyakashipu. So yes, there certainly is a bit of difference between our lust and cursing and anger and things like that, and what's going on here. It seems to me, I mean, I haven't read that clearly, or maybe I have read it and I don't recall it, but it seems to me that it's either Yoga Maya or the Leela Shakti of the Lord at play here, because we can see by the result what happens. So you judge the thing by the result. So looking at the result, we can see that this is facilitating the pastimes of the Lord. So because it's facilitating the Lord's pastimes, we can understand that these energies must be at play in some way. Whether it's directly Yoga Maya covering deity or not, I can't say. I'm just not that learned. But we can understand by the result that there must be a place somewhere there, for this to be precipitating the Lord's pastimes. But if it's just, we get bewildered, we get angry, we get into Maya, then that's Yoga, that's Mahamaya, clearly. So by the outcome you can understand what's happening. Okay. Anything else at all? Yes, bro.
Something in mind. Is there any mention of, I'm just curious to know, is there any mention of any natural calamities that are happening globally? Does that have any link with the Veda or the Shastra? Like, for example, just jumping to Japan and stuff like that. I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, we do hear descriptions from our acharyas and also in the scriptures how these calamities come, because there's different types. There's Adibhautik, Adhyatmik, Adidevik. So this is Adidevik, this is coming from the Devatas. Yeah? And this is often equated as being due to sinful activities. So because the activities of the people, engaging in illicit sex, intoxication, gambling, meat eating, this is building up the sinful reactions, and therefore it manifests in different ways. And one of the ways it manifests is in natural disasters. And this generally happens when you find, for instance, like a large group of people are engaging in a sinful activity, then they get collective karma. Yeah? Whereas with an individual, when something happens to you personally, that may be some a reaction for some sinful activity you're doing. But when it's a large group of people, a country, a planet, whatever, engaging in different types of activities, and this is collective karma. Yeah? So Adidevik. Yeah. Okay.